Hi, my name is Ayomide. Welcome to the World Without People podcast, where we journey into some pretty amazing stories of everyday people. I believe strongly in the interconnectedness of our human experience, that we can color and enrich our lives by sharing and learning from our lived experiences. In this concise podcast, I bring to you engaging conversations like a chapter in a vibrant book designed to motivate and encourage and challenge and, of course, brighten your day. My guests also get to ask me one question, and there's no telling what they might come up with. So thank you for tuning in. Grab your coffee or tea, or listen on the go to some amazing stories of real people. After all, what is a world without people? Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The World Without People. My name is Ayomide, and I am so excited to be having a fellow Aya on the show. Today, I am talking to one of I don't even know what I will describe you as, because it's funny. We met through the internet, right?
Yes, we did.
We went through social media and we didn't see each other for years, even though we worked closely together for a number of years. So for me, that also just says a lot about friendship, right? Like we did not need to see each other. We didn't need to have this, oh, we went to the same school or anything. We met, we clicked, and that was that. But anyways, I say all of this to say welcome Ayodele Adepoju to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Aya is the founder of We Plug Good Music, which is it's the best way to just say a PR.
I would go with that. So a PR and media company, because I think the conversation will like go from media to PR back to media. So I always say a PR and media company.
Absolutely. And this is founded in what was that? 2006? Maybe earlier.
So I think the blog we launched the blog in 2009, and then we launched the second blog in 2011, I think.
I don't know why I even thought that was much earlier. But yeah, so we plug good music. He mentioned the blog. That was how I first met Ayo. I always say that I had a past life in music that I'm still like probably gonna get back into. I love music so much. If you know me, you know that. And just tell us a little bit about that, right? Like the love for that, doing that, coming from Nigeria to the UK, where your your parents are sending you to school and they're like, this is not why we sent you to school. And talk a little bit about that.
Right, right. To me, music was always meant to be a side thing. I would say that when I came to the UK, I was coming here to school to do a master's and to work in investment banking. That was the plan. Maybe get some city experience and then go back to Nigeria. But the music and writing have always been a passion of mine, but I didn't think one could do that for a living because my plan was never to like
Mhm.
stay in the UK. And I didn't think one could make a decent living out of music and writing in Nigeria because one, I wasn't a
Mhm.
well, I wasn't an artist, right? So, back then, your love for music and your love for writing, there weren't many career paths with that, right? So, I always did that as a passion. The main aim was to try to get a job in the city, get some years of experience, and then go back to Nigeria. But, the whole music thing, it really, well, not to go too far back and to keep the story short, with the music thing, it really just started off with me sharing music that I liked on Facebook, on different Facebook groups, on my page, and then posting Buckner, God rest her soul. She suggested that I take all of that to a blog. And so she was perhaps the first person to say that. And then numerous other people said I should do that. And I just thought, okay, sure. why not? This is probably not going to get read by that many people, so sure, right? And so I took all the music that I would have shared on Facebook, and then I started to share them on a blog. But it was always meant to be a side thing, in all fairness.
And then, however many years later, are you still in investment banking? I actually don't know that. I don't think so. I think you stopped that a long time ago, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, definitely not in banking. So I think once I finished my master's, I was applying for jobs here and there. Nothing came through. Loads of CVs sent, a bunch of interviews, no callbacks, just, doing that for years and years. And then I thought, okay, maybe I need to beef up my CV by doing my CFA. And so I went back to school to try to do that, right? And so I think maybe in 2011 I had just passed CFA level 1, and I was going to take CFA level 2 in 2012. But in the middle of that, the blog had, in like 2 years, it had gone from one blog to two blogs to live shows to podcasts. Bear with me, I have a stammer, so I guess we should let the people know. But so maybe back end of 2011, some of the artists that we had featured on our blogs, that we had put on live gigs with, they started to ask me if I could send their music to other blogs as well. So, I guess they thought, okay, here is this guy who has a blog, who does live gigs. He must know other blogs like himself. Yeah, and so I kind of did that for a few months, maybe like 5 months on the back end of
Mm-hmm.
2011 for free. And we were able to get a few of these artists some really good blog or press placements, right? And at the start of 2012, December 31st, 2011, going into the first of the month, right, of the new year, I was like, God, look, I'm going to start doing this PR thing full time. I'm going to start to charge for it. If it is in your will, just make it good, right? That was 2012. We're now in 2023, 10 plus years of God making it good, and so that's how we went from trying to work in investment banking to doing some form of music, or working in the music business full time.
Right, right. And he says we, but a lot of it was IO. Yes, there were a lot of us that maybe would, write, because then I used to just write a lot of music reviews. Had a few people that would help with the press release, sending it out to all the different blogs at the time. But a lot of it was IO. So I know you're saying we, but that's you being modest, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, because it does take a village, as they say. So yeah, like we have had loads of people come in and help out, and give their all for the blog, or for the live gig. So many people helped and supported and worked with us to get the brand where it is, right? And to help us be able to pivot to a music PR career. You know what I mean?
And sometimes you realize, like you're saying, like it's maybe taking that pivot early, right? Because you're saying, you apply, you've gotten a degree, you didn't fail, right? So if nothing is happening, like God is trying
Yeah,
to tell you something, and sometimes we're stubborn. Well, like I said, I'm stubborn. And
I
it's
hear
like,
that. I
no, I
hear
said
that.
I was going to do public health. I said I was going to get a PhD. Who knows where life would have taken us or whatever. So, obviously
Right.
very happy to see this progression for you 10 years later, like you said. Talk to us, because you mentioned now about the stammer. Obviously all of this while you're behind the scenes, right? And then now you have to come out a little bit in front, talk to people. You're talking to about, putting their work on your blog or coming to the live gigs, and you have the stammer. So how did you deal with that? How did you get your confidence out to, talk to people and all of that?
I don't think I well, okay, how do I say this? I don't think I thought about it that much. I think that perhaps if I had thought about it, I may not have gone full on with a PR company or a PR business, right? Like when I thought about PR and press, and the that I was doing for these artists in those 6 months, let's perhaps call that a proof of concept. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing all of that via email, right? I didn't need to
Mm-hmm.
kind of call any journalist and say, oh, check out this artist. That was all done via email, right? And if maybe I had been told that, oh, in this music PR career, or in this music PR lane, you will need to pick up the phone and call a lot of people, I may not have gone ahead with it, right? Because back then, and perhaps even to a lesser degree now, I'm still very conscious of talking to people, talking to new people on the phone. And so I think perhaps God just
Mm.
showed me a bit of this
Right.
of this space, right? For me to take that leap. But even with that, right? And we can put this down to how the media space is very much digital these days. I still don't feel a need to call people, like most journalists that we work with or that we pitch to, or or that we speak with, right? They really don't want to be called, know, to talk about this artist or that artist, right? And so that may have worked in my favor a bit. But a second layer of that was, like, in that time I had started to do some speech therapy. So I perhaps wasn't as nervous or shy or anxious
Right.
about speaking to people. But that is always there. Even now, I had a meeting perhaps 2 weeks ago
Mhm.
where, like, my stammer was so bad, and I still get these thoughts of, I hope they, or he or she still takes me seriously. I hope I was able to get my point across, right? And so I still face that battle of the mind. One of the first things, or one of the early things that I held on to in my different phases of speech therapy is, so we were taught a lot of things regarding
Mm.
cognitive behavior, like in the sense of, if I have a feeling or fear that I am going to stammer, and this person that I am speaking with is going to laugh, and it's those thoughts just keep going round and round in a cycle. And the fear that you're going to be
Fair.
laughed
Mm-hmm.
at brings on more real fear, and then that typically will prevent me from speaking in the first place. And so, by God's grace, right, when those thoughts come in, I have been taught to kind of challenge those thoughts, right? Or those fears, or with real life data. And so, part of that is thinking of all the times that I have gone to speak to a new person. How many
Mm.
times has that new person laughed at me?
Mm.
Perhaps one time in like a million times, right? And so that perhaps helps me to kind of keep that fear or
Mm.
keep that anxiety at bay. But yeah, to go back to the question, I didn't really think about it when I launched the PR firm, or when we were doing the live nights. I just didn't really think about it. Like, and for so we did live nights from 2009 to 2014. And in those 5 years, there was like a year where I also had to host, right? But I didn't think about it, right? And this stammer works, or it comes on in quite funny ways, right? I could be on stage hosting, talking to a group of people in a full room and have controlled speech, but I step off that stage, speak to someone face to face, and I can't say my name, right? And it's just weird, right? But by God's grace, I didn't really think about it, because maybe if I did, I wouldn't have done the things that I did.
No, that makes sense. And, lovely to hear what you're saying about that cognitive behavior. I mean, I think all of us need that, in life, regardless, right? Because sometimes we just need to face that fear and be like, hey, this worked before, right? Or even if it didn't work for you, like you've seen it in other people's, lives or whatever. So that's helpful to kind of to think about. But yeah, I remember one mic. One mic is the live nights. Osage and yourself. Osage was in Nigeria at the time. We were trying to bring it to New York at the time as well.
Big dreams. We had big dreams. Imagine.
The funny thing is that, and I think that's the question, right? Like when we started all of this, well, I'm just saying we are as a, I was part of the thinking about it. It was a different atmosphere, right? Like now you see all these people doing all of these things, and we're like, maybe if we had stayed the course, or like, giving up all of those other dreams. I always say between you and Amize, right? Like these are some of the people, and then obviously what's the other
Yeah,
name? What's the other one in Nigeria that I forget the name of their blog. These are some of the people who actually did a lot of work of bringing Nigerian music outside of Nigeria, right? People may not know our names, people may not know the work that
yeah,
anybody
yeah,
did
yeah,
behind the scenes or whatever. But with the blogs, like, whether it was
yeah.
Amize's blog, your blog, or the other one, I forget what it was called, the one that they used to always, you're listening to the song and then you hear it on the track. You hear it in NigeriaMusic.com or
Exclusive.
something like that. Like, you now hear it on the thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes it's like people can see the vision, but you don't stay the course because it's such a different climate. And you stayed the course. And I
right,
guess what I'm asking is how or why. I know I didn't. I know a few of the other people, we've gone on to focus on our careers because again, Nigeria's music was just, it wasn't where it is now, right? How do you even also sometimes feel about,
right,
like,
right,
okay, are there things you could have done that would have quote unquote made you much more popular now, or those kind of things? Like, I don't know if you're getting my
right.
question.
So the thing is, right? I don't even think that I stayed the course like that, right? I can say I perhaps stayed the course, in terms of turning this passion for music and media into a career and or business that can feed myself and my family, right? And so in that regard, I may have stayed the course, but like there have been so many times where I've said I'm not
Hmm.
working with Afrobeats artists anymore. These people are driving me mad. This what, you know what I mean? But I don't think it has been by design. Well, sorry,
Right.
not by my own design, I would say, right? Because when I pivoted from solely media to start a PR company, a lot of my first
Right.
clients were Afrobeats artists, right? With quite a few UK black music artists as well. But, there were times where working with Afrobeats
Mm.
artists was just very difficult, right? And I would go multiple seasons saying, I want other clients because these artists are
Mm-hmm.
just like they're just long. There are times where they won't pay, times where like they want or demand things that are just not possible, right? Like we have had so many conversations, right? Now we have a lot of African artists that are
Right.
getting international press, and that's great, right? But take it back a few years ago, getting an Afrobeats artist on like Complex or
Mm-hmm.
Fader was kind of like the holy grail, right? And then there would be some African artists or some Afrobeats artists, they are putting out a song on Friday and they then come to you on Wednesday or saying, oh, we want to get a Complex premiere. I'm like, what? Like,
Right.
you are putting out your track in 2 days. Like I can't do that, right? So I just try anyway, try anyway, try anyway. I'm like, like literally one. Not only do the journalists and the editors at Complex, not only do they get hundreds and thousands of emails daily, let's say mine gets through. They have to review it first of all. That's that, and then come back to me, right? And if your song comes out on Friday, they are probably going to want to premiere it because that is all they kept on asking for a few years back. Every Afrobeat artist, every Complex premiere, Fader like blah, blah. But anyway, the point was, okay, if your song comes out on Friday, the premiere on blog A or blog B, or, would
Mm-hmm.
typically be on the Thursday. Like it literally makes no
Wednesday.
sense to get in touch with me on Wednesday to ask for a premiere the next day. Those things,
Mm-hmm.
were just getting a bit too much. And then you would get Afrobeats artists, saying, okay, for a long time, they just didn't get how international press works, right? Like a journalist at a UK press publication or a UK magazine is going to want to write about music that they like. So if they don't like your music,
Mm-hmm.
they are not going to want to write about it. And for a long time, Afrobeats artists did
Mm-hmm.
not want to take that, right? And it's hard to work a press campaign client that perhaps believe they should get onto this UK publication or this UK magazine, regardless of whether the journalist likes the music or not. So, there have been for me loads of love and hate seasons, right? But I certainly would not be where I am. We would not be where we are by God's grace without African artists as clients, as partners, so yeah,
Man.
to God be the glory there. And so me
Mm-hmm.
staying the course has
Right.
perhaps not been by my own design.
Leave it at that. I'm just thinking about all the times we would get like emails and please put out this blog. And you're right, yeah, please put out this PR or whatever. And they're sending it on Thursday and the song is coming out on Friday. And like, I mean, it wasn't just UK journalists. I never wrote on a thingy that I didn't like. And we used to fight all the time then because like, I remember back then we had like, even like old Wizkid. Actually, I want to talk about that a bit. How much music do you have of unreleased, of unreleased art? Like like artists that are now big that we have their songs that were unreleased. Like, can we sell it? Would we make money? Do you think? Because I have a bunch of these artists. I just want you all to.
So I don't even know how much I have. I'm sure there are loads, right? The ones that are most memorable for me, for us, is when Sags got Wizkid, Ice Prince, Kel to like do a freestyle on that gigs talking the hardest song, like, or when we got a e- exclusive on Kel's first album, and then like a lot of the much bigger Nigerian blogs were throwing a fit as to why we got those songs first. Right? No, but yeah, no, Shank song, like loads of like, I don't even know where Shank is now, but I hope it's good.
I know, right? I was thinking about it the other day. I was listening to Jules or Julie or whatever that song was, and I was like, "Where is this guy?" I think he's a Christian artist now or something. Anyways, like, yeah, it just because like I'll sometimes go
Okay,
into my this thing or whatever, and sometimes you still get some random blog that will still send you something, and I'm just like, I've been out of this for a while, but like, I have some Wizkid songs that were never released. And I remember back then, I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan initially. And I remember people used to tell me that, well, it's not for you. Like, there's a
yeah,
certain crowd, right, that they're trying to appeal to and everything. And obviously, changed his game and everything. But I think that was the
right,
point that
right,
they didn't understand that. They didn't understand that, okay, first of all, you're trying to appeal to an international audience. You might need to first of all, make it international, which a lot of them ended up doing, and then go back to the roots. Like there's a way to kind of like
yeah.
work this thing to your advantage. It was kind of hard for them to understand.
Yeah, no, and to be fair, right, in hindsight, I do think that a lot of them
Mm,
were right in what
okay.
they were doing at the time. Like, take Wizkid's first album, right? That project is
Mhm.
for his core fan base, right? And if they had tried to kind of pitch that to perhaps non-African tastemakers, like they
Mm,
perhaps would
right.
not have gotten it, right? And now I am of the view that no artist should change their sound for any particular market, right? And even more so because I kind of look at things from a press landscape or a press lens, right? I certainly would not want an artist to change their sound because they feel that sound A is what Pitchfork wants to write about, or sound B is what the Guardian want to
Right.
write about, and then they feel that they should change their sound to
Mm,
sound A or sound B. I certainly don't think that is the way. You know what I mean? Just make the music that you like, make the music that your core fan base wants, and if Pitchfork or Guardian or Vogue or blah blah, if they cotton on, then all good. And if the music is good, then you still have a shot of being heard and being talked about by these non-Afrobeat or non-Pan-African media spaces.
that makes sense. I think maybe I wasn't even saying change your sound, but it was more like, you know how like nowadays you'll see like they'll do even yesterday it was Nigerian national anthem, and they did it with the whole orchestra, choir, right? Like it was more like just not like
Right.
I'm pretty sure if you take Ojuelegba now and do that, right? Like I like literally strip it down. Like it was just those kind of things, and you're pitching it. You're not even saying, oh, just change your sound or whatever. But we're like, okay, oh, like this is not going to get you to every crowd, but people didn't even want to hear that. But it's amazing
Right.
that you're seeing it now, right? Because they're doing it now, and it's like we had the
Yeah.
foresight. We were telling you
Yeah.
these things back then. But anyways, let's leave the people. Okay, so obviously, like you said, now you've made this a business. But like you said, I remember then we didn't charge anybody. I mean, like you said, we did it out of love, right? But now you're charging people, and especially back then when it was
Yeah.
Afrobeat artists primarily, that and they can't see the value of that amount in relation to the work, right? So how have you kind of? I mean, thankfully you had a
Yeah.
finance, experience or whatever. But how have you been able to translate this into business that you said, like you said, that is paying your bills?
Yes. So the thing is, right, I have been asked this question a couple of times in the past year, and I need to come up with a more business savvy answer, but it's by God's grace. And the thing is, for me, pivoting from a blogger to working in PR, right? It is hard. Well, it was hard to kind of quantify what we do, like in terms of the fee, right? And I think I had to play it by ear at the start, and like see or gauge what other PR people or freelance publicists may have been charging at that time, right? And there were very different models, right? So say one PR firm says, okay, I can pitch you to 10 UK publications, and the fee for that would be blah blah. Or I can work with you for a month, and our target is to get you on 10 UK media outlets or 10 US blogs, and the fee for that is, blah blah blah. And I always thought, while I am confident of the work that we do, and almost all of the press work that we have done for years, we typically always get our clients or our artists on much more than 10 media outlets. And so I didn't want to price my
Mm,
service that way, because I always felt that you are not paying me to get onto 10 blogs or to get onto 10 newspapers or to get onto 10 magazines. What we are doing is much more than that. We are crafting the story behind the music, behind the artist. We are making sure that the relevant journalists in this genre space or in this music space are listening to your music, and that is much more than 10 people or 10 publications. To get 10 features, you perhaps have to pitch to 50 publications, right? And the rest say no. And, so I just knew that the value of press and publicity for any artist was worth much more than them
right.
paying for 10 shares or something like that. But I typically played it by ear. At the start, as I said, a lot of our artists or clients were Afrobeats artists and emerging and independent UK artists as well. And so I knew from the start, none of these clients had major
Mm,
label
mm,
budgets to play with. So I couldn't jump out of the
right.
window and, start to charge, blah, 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 blah. And this, I had a friend who works in UK media, and, he would always say, do you know how much
Charging.
XYZ is charging for, press and PR? And I can see that
Mm,
your work is better than theirs. You should charge more. And I'm like, bro, I get it. But like, they are working with a label, they can charge, blah, blah, because a label can pay that. And it was like, then you need to start working with labels as well so that you can
mm,
charge what you are worth, right? But,
mm,
for a long time, I was probably
mm,
scared of pricing myself out, of that space. And I think that with my work with emerging artists, I also didn't want to price them out of getting press and PR because, press and PR for
Mm.
any artist is key. And the whole ethos behind We Plug Good Music was always to kind of support
Right.
new and emerging artists, right? And just because I've done a pivot from media to PR doesn't then mean I shouldn't still cater for new and emerging artists, even in the PR space. And so, a lot of that went into factoring where we priced
Mm.
our PR service at the start for the first few years, and just finding the right balance, I would say. When I have business conversations with friends or with colleagues in the industry, or friends that are not in the space as well, they
Mm.
always
Mm.
say you need to up these prices, bro. But yeah, like I think we are priced at a reasonable amount, and we can cater to not only the new and emerging artists, but we work with quite a few labels now. So but to go back to the question, we priced our PR service by playing it by ear, trying to see what the rest of the UK music PR industry were charging, and seeing how we could make our press service still affordable for the new and emerging artists that we were still typically working with.
You know what I was doing? I was just going through mentally also some of our, correspondence back then, thinking about how we like. I do you remember when you were doing a prelude to the future? Oh my gosh! Oh
A
my
previous
gosh!
feature, yeah.
Like, oh god, and just thinking about some of those exchanges, and you did all that for free. So to your point, right? Like now taking it to this thing where you're pricing, but also trying to do it in a way that promotes new people, because you're very, very right. We really did and
Yeah.
always focused on writing or working for people who were new and unheard, and giving people, a lot of
Yeah.
people in Africa, that space to do that. Like I'm seeing even people like Waje, Baz. No, I'm going through some of our emails, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we did that. I see us fighting about something about blog roll exchange, and then I remember the name of the thing that we were talking about. Not just okay, that was the that was the one where they would always
Oh
have their
yeah,
things
yeah.
or whatever. No, I think it's
That's a good
amazing. I
one.
agree with
Yeah.
you that some people are just like, business, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, right? Like we're the best, that kind of thing. And I get that, I really do. But
Yeah.
I think that at the end of the day, we have to go with what we think is right. And like you said, if God is in it, He's going to make it work.
Yeah.
You're not starving. And maybe there will
Yeah.
some time when it's like, okay, now we're above and beyond. But it's okay to also, to build, right? And so, anyways, just reminiscing
Yeah.
on some of the things that you've done. Again, I'm seeing the thing that we were trying to do on TV, like Indie Culture TV. Was that what it was?
Oh
Yep.
gosh.
Yep.
So many projects, right? And I think that the main reason that I was perhaps able or interested in doing all of those things was, I still saw
Mm,
it as
mm,
a passion project, right? And, as a side thing, I was always thinking, don't worry, I'll get my investment banking job, and we can then probably
mm,
just pay
mm,
for all of these things, right? But while it's still a passion project as a concept, once it became a business full time. This is what I'm doing full time. Like we just had to just strip
Yep.
down media, PR, live,
Yeah.
podcast, TV. Yeah,
Yeah.
bro, just strip everything down. Let's focus. The PR is the one that people are
Right.
paying for, so that stays. You have two blogs and a social media following that keeps the brand in people's eyes, and you still get to support
Mm.
artists in that way. But then, like live gig, stop. Like podcast, stop. The TV thing, stop. Yeah, like we stopped the live gigs in 2014. Like it just got too much. You are 2 years in of doing this PR firm, and that is the main thing. You
Right.
have to focus your time on that. And I was like, these live gigs, yeah, they had to kind of just stop.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think of all the many things, like, yeah, we were always like, oh, we needed to quickly finish on time. We needed to do this, so quickly put this out. But I think the live gig is a much more organizational nightmare, logistical nightmare, like that took a lot more time than,
Yeah,
oh, we just
yeah,
needed to put
yeah.
something up on social media. And so maybe I'll ask you before we round up really quickly is who's your favorite artist to have worked with so far? And I know it might be hard to like, you know, not then say anybody else is your favorite artist, but
It's a
few of the
lot.
people that maybe you worked with and you really
It's
just
a lot.
enjoyed working with, plus, the music is like your favorite, that kind of thing.
I can't pinpoint one because there have been
Mm,
a lot of really dope projects that we have
mm,
worked with over the years. So I'll maybe
mm,
talk about this year. This year so far. On the press side, we have done a lot of stuff
mm,
with Empire, and they are really good to us, like in terms of the client and PR relationship there, and so while I may not talk on the music side of things because I would have to name everyone, but I'll just say who are some of our favorite clients at the moment: Empire, Platoon, 1 RPM. We did some stuff with Edge Max. They look after a Cycle YP, and they look after a couple of really interesting artists. They're based in Abuja, so it's always fun working with them as well. But yeah, like in terms of favorite, I don't have any because there are
right.
just too many to name. But yeah, nah, it's been a very fun ride. We thank God. It's um more fun rides to come for sure.
Amen. I do think that, I mean, hey, let me just pitch. If if you want to go back to the We Plug Music Radio podcast, we need to do that because I do think that there's still there's still like room for, just putting out good new music or whatever. Because sometimes I find it so hard now to find good new music on my own. Like I feel like somebody needs to email them to me and be like, "This is new music. Listen to
Yeah.
it. What do you think?" Oh my gosh! Just again, looking at some of these things, very, very, very proud of you. Honestly, like.
And the thing with the whole podcast thing, there are times now when I have conversations with people that knew
Mhm.
that we had a podcast, and they
Kept it.
always say,
And
if you
now,
had only just kept your podcast away,
I
who
know.
knows now?
I'm blaming that one. I'm blaming myself. I'm 2014. I was taking my exam. I was taking my PhD exam, and that was it. Because I'm looking at some of our stuff. By 2013, I was already like, oh my gosh, I need money and I need to work, and then there's school, and I was like, Ayo, please, can I like take a break? And Ayo is like, no. How about you don't take a break? How about you do this? We do this, but like. I'm looking at it now by 2014. It was like I
Oh
couldn't do as much. Oh my gosh! But no, honestly,
no.
really, just a phenomenal story. I'm looking for bigger and better. And obviously, like you said, you've pivoted a little bit much more from just Afrobeat, and it's been, interesting seeing you in the UK space as well. It's not just black artists in the UK space as well, but it's also good to know that, hey, there's a place that, for the culture, for lack of a better term, you know.
No, it's good that you said that because I am proud of the work that
Mhm.
we do in black music, in UK black music, in Pan African music, and as a PR firm, being able to represent some really, really good Pan African artists and get them into press spaces that they wouldn't typically get to, and being able to do that
Mm.
for UK black music as well, from a press perspective, we are very proud of that work. By God's grace, we have been able to, to get some really good press for Afrobeat music because these artists are deserving of that, and it is very, very key to to get our music in more mainstream press publications or more mainstream media spaces, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of fighting, emails, pushing, convincing that these artists are making worthy music that should be considered, right? And so, by God's grace, all thanks to God, we are proud of that work for sure.
Awesome. I think the final thing I want to just tell people is, one, go to the website, repluggoodmusic.com. I don't know how I missed this, that you had done a appeal to the future. I don't know how I missed that. Oh my gosh. And that was just such beautiful work. I just want you guys to know. So you guys should go listen to that on Spotify, title, all the good stuff.
For sure. And so I think now for me, right, the kind of things that I see We Plug Good Music doing in the media space are just really, really fun things that, that can put really good artists that perhaps are still not getting mainstream media coverage. So I think there is still a space that We Plug Good Music as a media platform, can still play, but it is a thing of my day to day is WPGM PR, right? And so it's only when I have downtime that I can kind of see of doing some really cool projects in the media space like that remastered projects, the video
Hmm.
podcast that we were doing or that we are doing, with a few artists, as well as, looking at doing what we have done two so far this year, but like we are doing digital covers or digital cover stories, and that is a project that I love, but it's only when I have time.
Well, I mean, like you're saying, you're gonna have to start employing more people, and so charging more people. But I also think, you should call us back. Like, I feel like all of us who've worked in the past, you're like, okay, let's do one special project. Let's do like a reunion tour, like in sync. But I think we should do it. Like,
Let's
just
do
thinking
it.
of some of the people that I can't even
Do it. Let's
remember half
do
of
it.
the people that we worked with. But
Let's
like
do it.
myself,
Let's do it.
Demi, who else? Like you said, Tessie late now. But Dupe,
Let's
I think was I don't. Is Dupe still on with you? Okay.
No, no. Well, it's gonna be hard to bring the band back together. Sags is in charge of all, the whole 1 RPM, on the continent. So, she is very busy. Shola is doing. He has a retail business now, right? And so,
Uh,
like people are doing things, but
okay.
who knows?
No, this was awesome. Thank you so much, and it's been fun. It was fun. I'm happy to see Afrobeats also get its own platform, right? It's been encouraging to see. But I think,
Yes, sure.
music is such an important part of, and maybe that's a question for you, right? Because sometimes music is very connected to the soul, right? And you're a Christian, and there's this whole thing of,
Yeah.
as a Christian, we should not be listening to secular music. So talk to me a little bit about that, because and I
Hey.
think for me, I'll be honest with you, even past that, I even struggled with listening to music again, because I'm just like, that's the one. I don't feel like I worship music, but that's one thing I absolutely love. Like music,
Right.
books, coffee. Like that, I think that if you comprise my life,
Right.
or you want to say what are the things she loves, music, books, coffee, family, friends. Like
Yeah.
that's it. But music
Right.
has always
Right.
been so deep
Yeah.
to me. So how do you kind of balance that?
So I think that for me, language is key. So I don't see music as gospel versus
Love it.
secular in that sense, right? And so I guess, one could say there is music that perhaps glorifies God, there's neutral music, and then there's music
Mm,
that doesn't glorify God. And for each person, that scale might be different in that sense. And for me, there have been music that just
mm,
doesn't take to my spirit. And so, I can't listen to that, if it's very gory, very violent, I just get a visceral
right.
reaction to that, right? And so, you know, that is it for me, right? But my wife will tell you, outside of my clients, I perhaps only listen to Maverick City Music, House Fires,
Mm,
Mosaic, MSC. So, you know, between all of the music that my PR clients send me, and while that is music that I
right.
listen to for work, that takes up
Yeah.
most of my time, right? And so within my downtime, like, it's just
Yeah.
what I am drawn to. But I don't say, oh, I only listen to gospel music in my downtime, because that's not how I frame Housefire, Maverick City Music, or
Mm,
Mosaic, MSC. These bands or these groups just make music that speaks to my soul, like proper, right? And so I think for Christians, like, as Paul says, all things are permissible, not all things
mm,
are profitable, right? And so I just think, do what your
mm,
spirit is calling you to do. Listen to what your spirit perhaps allows, right? I find the conversation, or from the Christian side, the conversation about music to be lacking, in the sense of, if you feel that listening to XYZ music is going to cause some XYZ spirit to enter you, like, that can be said
mm,
about
mm.
film, books, paintings. Where do you want to go with it? Where do you want to draw the line? And I'm sure some questions are going to come for me. Please don't come for me. I beg. This is just, what I think. Like, what is even secular music? Like, you know, w- yeah, I don't know what you mean when you say that. Like,
I love that. And I think it's a good way to think about it, right? I think that, like you said, just think about how much the Bible talks about even just music, right? I think the Bible is the first place where we know
right,
and understand that there's supposed to be music. And I don't think he called it secular versus
right.
non secular, right? Yeah, there's obviously, oh, he worshiped the Lord
Yeah,
or he
yeah,
danced to the Lord. but then he talks about music and the symbols and the dancing, and it wasn't always in reference to you know like I'm praying to God or something like that. It was just more something that we
Right,
enjoyed, right? Like
right,
the
right,
Bible
right.
talks about, going to a wedding, and I'm pretty sure that there was some kind of dancing and singing and everything involved that was not saying Jesus, 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 right?
The thing is, though, you are right, right? And on top of that, you know, I always find that a worthwhile exercise for me is to take any argument
Mm.
to its optimth degree, in the sense of, if you say that you don't listen to any secular music, period, how would you classify music like Beethoven, right? One. Two, say you have a Christian artist that is making music that doesn't talk about God. Where does that fit in your box? Right? And when you start to think about it, if we can name loads of music that will not fit into these two boxes, then perhaps these two boxes are not helpful. But
Yeah, classical, jazz, what's the other one? Blues, right? Especially when there's no so-called words, right? But you don't know the spirit behind the person, right? Because at the end of the day, this thing is
right,
supposed to be
right,
spiritual, right? My mom is having
right,
such a hard time now with Dante Bowie because there's a certain image she's projecting now, which is different from what she's expecting from a, Christian. And it's true. I mean, just looking at things on a face value, you can see the struggle, right? I know some of the songs. There's a popular song, and I'm forgetting the name now, where I know a popular pastor who's like, "Is this really glorifying God?" I forget the name of the song. I think it's Oceans. No, not Oceans. One of them.
but the thing with the Christian online space is that it
Mm-hmm.
is very, very judgmental, right? Like, if they or we are not talking down or saying how Dante Bowe is wrong, and and no Christian should listen to him, or don't listen
Mm.
to Montel Fish, or if it's not that kind of conversation, it is conversation around how
Mm.
don't listen to Hillsong because it's not
Right. That's for the Hillsong song.
theologically sound. It's like,
Right.
what are we doing? What are we doing here? Give us something. Anyway, like, we're just gonna
Conversation
go down.
altogether.
It's like, what are we actually doing here?
No, that's awesome, and I think it's a good way to end, right? Because again, we're not just talking about music like from a place of, oh, we did this, we did that. And it's also like, hey, we're also lovers and what's the word, consumers of this thing that we do, right? And it's important, but again, as people who believe in
Right.
God, right,
Yeah.
it's also important what we listen to and stuff like that. But like you said, we're spirit man. Like your spirit should be telling you this is wrong or this is not wrong, right? Like there's some things you just like X, right? But I saw something the other day where it was like, oh,
Yeah.
was a Christian even doing, not only doing gospel music for their wedding, for example. I'm just like, okay, like be coming down. Like I like gospel
Right.
music. Don't get me wrong. Oh, just trust me, I can do a whole wedding with only gospel music. But like, I'm pretty sure God is not mad at us not doing the only gospel.
And you know what? And so those conversations are, one, not helpful, but two, they are not
Mm-hmm.
even well thought out. Because now, right, I am listening and watching arguments that
Mm,
are challenging our faith, right? And in defense of our faith, we have
absolutely.
to be able to think
Absolutely.
critically, speak critically,
Absolutely.
defend well, right? And so, like, if one can break down your argument with ease and show how, even from your own Christian point of
It's
view,
not enough.
what
It's
you are
not enough.
saying doesn't even make sense. It's like, are you making a good defense of your Christian faith, as you think you are, by saying such things? I don't think you are.
Let me put you on the spot real quick. So how do you feel about this whole Beyonce argument?
Look, right? Hey,
And if you don't know what the Beyonce argument is that
so
she's gotten a lot more diabolical. She references all this African tradition and washing in the blood and all these kind of things. So as a Christian, we should not be
right,
listening to Beyonce.
right. Thank you. So I think again, right? If listening to Beyonce is going to cause you to, I don't even know how to say it. If you feel that it's not good for your soul or for your
Right.
spirit, then perhaps don't listen to it, right? But I don't think to then say, just because I feel strongly in my spirit that I
Right.
shouldn't be listening to XYZ, that doesn't then
Yeah.
make it blanket for everyone else, right?
Right.
Paul says that I can eat this meat, right? Even
Yes.
though it's been sacrificed to idols, I can eat this meat and my conscience is clear, right? However, if my brother or my sister doesn't have that clear conscience to eat, then I
Right.
perhaps may not eat
Right.
in their presence, right? But I'm not doing anything wrong by
Yeah.
eating this meat. You know what I mean? So if me listening to Beyonce, if me listening to artist ABC will cause my brother or my
Right.
sister to stumble, then, by God's grace, I will not
Right.
listen to ABC where they are, right? But me, there is nothing wrong with me listening to artist ABC if it's not causing
Yeah. Yeah.
my spirit to be grieved, if that's the right way to say it. But, you know, each
Absolutely.
person to their own, right? I think that, well, I don't want to say that fighting about what music to listen to versus not is trivial, but I think that there are much bigger things at play, or there are much bigger things to hold our focus. And, you know, God has given
Absolutely.
you a spirit of discernment. Discern, and if in your discernment you find I shouldn't be listening to artists A, B, and C, then that's all good.
I agree. And, one thing that I've been thinking about is like, there's also seasons of people, right? Like, if I listen to former A and I don't listen to current A, because again, let's be guided here. But let the Holy Spirit guide you. That's all I'm saying. Let the Holy Spirit guide you. We've referenced some Bible verses here. I am bad with actual chapter and verse, but I'm pretty sure Google is your friend. Just put it in. What we're talking about is in the Bible. Is not that hard. And no, seriously, thank you so much because I know we can keep going. You get to ask me one question. So
One question. So this is a question that I typically ask my music guests when they come onto the podcast. So what one album, book, film, TV show have you been listening, watching, reading that you want to recommend to, well, in this case, your listeners?
So there's a book I'm reading. It's been taking me for forever. Actually, two books I would say. The one is called Holy Ambition, and it's basically talking about just how God can use the ambition that we have for His glory. And it's by Chip Ingram. The other one is more like a devotional, and I think it's called the Daily Catechism.
Yeah.
And it's a really lovely book, in my opinion, or it's kind of like a devotional that basically just helps us walk through what is God saying. There's a newer one. I'm trying to. Oh my gosh, I wish I could
Yeah.
remember who wrote the one I'm listening to. The New City Catechism. I found it. The New City Catechism. Whether for kids or for adults, I think it's a really good, devotional that helps you kind of just go through understanding God's word. I will say Ted Lasso is something that I think everybody should watch. It's very there could be a lot of curse words, but I just don't. It talks so well about family and just forgiveness, which I think that Americans do a good job of depicting. I don't know if they do it in real life, but they definitely do a great job of depicting
Right.
forgiveness in a lot of their movies, and it's something that has helped my life. I will say, in just recognizing that that's one thing that we need to do. Music. Honestly, I've been listening to a lot of Maverick City as well recently. But I will say that sometimes I like to go back to the classics and just you can't go wrong with Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is just somebody that I love so much when it comes to music. Just sometimes if I'm looking to just go back there, that's who I would listen to. So I think those are the three things. Yeah, I would say. But thank you so much. This was fun. I appreciate you. And hopefully see you soon. And hi to the wife.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me in today's episode. Just like you would share with friends about a great book you read, don't forget to share this if you enjoyed it. Connect with us on IG and Twitter at TWWPcast and get details on the website at worldwithoutpeople.org. And hey, remember to make loving others the story of your life. Until next time, this is the world without people.